You think you're middle class, but you're not. And that's costing you money. If you make $70,000 a year, you probably feel pretty good about your income. You've got a decent job, maybe a college degree, and you're doing better than minimum wage workers. So you're middle class, right? Wrong. That $70,000 today feels like a good salary, but it has the purchasing power of roughly $18,500 from 1980. To have the same lifestyle as someone making $30,000 in 1980, you'd need to earn over $113,000 today. Same number on your paycheck, completely different lifestyle. Here's the math that proves most people aren't actually middle class anymore. The definition shifted, and nobody told you. What we're dealing with now is something economists call the Great Decoupling, the moment when your productivity went up, but your paycheck stayed flat. Stick around because it's time to learn how money works in the new economy.
Let's start with what middle class actually meant. In 1980, if you made $50,000 a year, you could buy a house, a car, send your kids to college, and do it all on one income, while your spouse stayed home. That $50,000 salary could get you a 3-bedroom house in most American cities. The median home price was around $64,000, which meant you needed about 1.3 years of income to buy a house. Your monthly mortgage payment was maybe 20% of your take-home pay. College for your kids? State schools cost about $2,000 a year. You could literally pay for a 4-year degree with a summer job. Healthcare was mostly covered by your employer, and what you paid out of pocket was minimal. This was the deal. Work hard, get a decent job, and you could afford the American dream on a single income. But something broke in 1973. Economists call it the Great Decoupling. This is when worker productivity and wages stopped rising together. Think of it like this. Imagine you work at a pizza shop and every year you get better at making pizzas. In 1970, you made 10 pizzas an hour. By 1980, you could make 12 pizzas an hour. By 1990, 15 pizzas an hour. You became more efficient, more productive, more valuable to your employer. In the old system, your pay went up with your productivity. More pizzas per hour meant more money per hour. That's how the economy worked for decades after World War II. But starting in 1973, something changed. You kept getting better at making pizzas, 20 per hour, then 25, then 30. But your paycheck stayed the same. All that extra productivity, all those extra pizzas you were making, the money from those went somewhere else. Where did it go? To shareholders, to executives, to people who owned capital instead of people who provided labor. The workers became incredibly more efficient, but the benefits of that efficiency got redirected. This created a massive illusion. Your job title stayed the same, your relative position in the company stayed the same, your salary even went up a little bit each year. But your purchasing power, what that salary could actually buy, started falling behind. So when your dad talks about buying his first house on a teacher's salary, he's not exaggerating. When your mom mentions paying for college with a part-time job, that actually happened. They lived in a different economic system where productivity gains got shared with workers. The Great Decoupling explains why you can have the same job title as someone from 1980, make what seems like more money, and still struggle to afford basic middle-class markers like home ownership. Same job titles, same relative salaries, completely different lifestyle outcomes. That's the hidden reality of the modern economy. But the decoupling was just the beginning. 3 specific costs exploded after wages stopped rising, and these 3 things broke the entire system.
Now, here's where the story gets really ugly. After wages stopped rising with productivity, 3 specific costs went absolutely insane. These are what I call the 3 financial killers: housing, healthcare, and education. Let's start with housing, because this one affects everyone. Housing became a game of musical chairs, except they kept removing chairs while adding more players. Here's what happened. Local governments across the country started restricting housing supply through zoning laws.
They limited how many homes could be built, where they could be built, and what types of housing were allowed. At the same time, Wall Street discovered they could treat houses like investment vehicles. So you had fewer houses being built while more people, including investors, were trying to buy them. Basic supply and demand economics. Prices had nowhere to go but up. Remember that house that cost 1.3 years of income in 1980? Today, the median home price requires about 5 years of median income. In expensive cities, it's worse. In San Francisco, you need 12 years of median income to buy a median-priced home. But here's the kicker. Your salary didn't go up to match. So housing went from being 20% of your income to 40% or 50% of your income, sometimes more. This isn't just about expensive coastal cities anymore. A teacher in Austin, Texas, making $50,000 a year is looking at median home prices around $500,000. That's 10 years of gross income for a basic house. Good luck saving up for that down payment while paying rent. The second killer is healthcare, and this one operates like a hidden tax that keeps going up every year. In 1980, the average worker paid about $500 a year for health insurance premiums. Their employer covered most of it. Today, the average worker pays over $6,000 a year just in premiums. And that's before deductibles, co-pays, and all the stuff insurance doesn't cover. The third killer is education, and this one set up an entire generation for financial failure. College costs have outpaced inflation by about 300% since 1980. While everything else got maybe 2 or 3 times more expensive, college got 8 times more expensive. That state school that cost $2,000 a year in 1980, today it costs about $16,000 a year for in-state tuition. The government made student loans easier to get, which sounds helpful, until you realize it just allowed colleges to raise prices even more. It's like giving everyone a $50,000 credit card and then acting surprised when car dealers start charging $50,000 for a Honda Civic. Now let's look at what this means in real numbers. Take someone making $70,000 a year in a mid-sized American city. After taxes, they're taking home maybe $52,000. Housing eats up $26,000 of that, half their take-home pay for a basic apartment or mortgage payment. Healthcare costs another $8,000 between premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket expenses. If they went to college, student loan payments are probably $6,000 a year. That's $40,000 out of $52,000 just for housing, healthcare, and education debt. They've got $12,000 left for food, transportation, clothing, savings, entertainment, and everything else life requires. This is why someone making $70,000 a year feels broke. In 1980, those same 3 categories, housing, healthcare, and education, consumed about 30% of median income. Today, they consume over 70% of median income. You are not bad with money. The system changed, and these 3 costs exploded while your paycheck stayed flat. You're trying to afford a 2024 lifestyle on a 1980 salary structure. This creates what economists call the financially fragile, people who look middle class on paper, but are actually one emergency away from financial disaster. So if you're that middle class, what are you?
Here are 3 simple rules to escape financial fragility. The system is broken, but you still have to live in it. These 3 rules won't fix the economy, but they'll help you build financial stability despite the structural problems. Rule number 1, the 50-30-20 rule adapted for the new reality. Prioritize the 20% savings ruthlessly, even if it means sacrificing the 30% wants category. The traditional 50-30-20 rule says spend 50% on needs, 30% on wants, and save 20%. But when housing alone takes 40 to 50% of your income, this rule breaks down. You need to flip the priorities. Start with the 20% savings goal and work backwards.
If you make $70,000 a year, that's $14,000 you need to save annually, or about $1,200 per month. Everything else has to fit around that number. This might mean living with roommates longer than you want. It might mean driving an older car. It might mean eating out less or skipping expensive vacations. But without that 20% savings rate, you'll never escape financial fragility. Rule number 2, the true cost calculation. Before any major financial decision, factor in all 3 killers: housing, healthcare, and education costs. When you're deciding whether to take a job in a new city, don't just look at the salary. Look at housing costs, health insurance options, and whether you'll need additional education or certifications. A $90,000 job in San Francisco might leave you worse off than a $60,000 job in Nashville once you factor in the true costs. When you're deciding whether to buy a house, don't just look at the mortgage payment. Factor in property taxes, maintenance, HOA fees, and the opportunity cost of your down payment. Make sure you can still save 20% of your income after all housing-related expenses. When you're deciding whether to go back to school, calculate the total cost, including lost wages while you're studying, and compare that to the realistic salary increase you'll get from the degree. Rule number 3, the fragility test. Build systems that can survive one major financial shock. This means having an emergency fund that covers at least 3 months of expenses, not just 3 months of bills. If your monthly expenses are $4,000, you need $12,000 in savings, not $3,000. It means having multiple income streams if possible. A side hustle, freelance work, or passive income that could help if you lose your main job. It means avoiding debt for anything that doesn't increase your earning capacity. Car loans for reliable transportation are sometimes necessary. Student loans for degrees that lead to higher salaries can make sense. Credit card debt for vacations or consumer goods will keep you financially fragile forever. These aren't get-rich-quick schemes, these are survival strategies for an economy that's rigged against wage earners. The system is broken, but these rules help you build wealth despite the broken system.
You're not failing. The definition of middle class changed while you were following the old rules. Understanding this system is the first step to beating it. Subscribe for more explanations of how money actually works in the new economy.